Polycarp at his martyrdom, they're going to burn him alive and then dead, of course. But, he's an older man. All he had to do was renounce his confession that Jesus was Lord. And he says, the Lord's been good to me all these years. He's fed me, taken care of me, loved me. And now all of a sudden I'm going to deny him. Why would I do that? And it's the same sort of thing with these kind of, so we need to make friends with all these people whom the devil is assaulting, the world is assaulting. And we need to be their friends.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we got to get kind of a firsthand look at what that looks like. So we had someone in our church, and you might be able to, maybe you recognize the book. So she, great member, very active, donates a ton of her time helping both special needs within the church and volunteering for a lot of different things. Younger mother of two. And she went into the library, and there's this book. I think it's gained some publicity. This is where you might know the book, but it's big on like being very explicit with all of this different sexual stuff, oral sex, intercourse, and all these pictures and stuff to go along with it.
Yeah.
And including towards the end of the book, there's one of an older man and a young boy, right? So I mean, it's very overtly pedophilia. Well, this book is sitting in the entranceway. So when you're checking out, your kids are running around. I mean, you turn your back for 2 minutes and these kids can pop this open, and there's images of this stuff. So she's like, okay. And she's very strong. And so she goes, I'm going to go through the proper channels. I'm going to bring it up at the next board meeting that I want this. I'm not even trying to get it removed from the library. I just want it removed from where children can go over and reach it, right? That's a very reasonable request.
Sure.
So she goes about this. Well, the board learns about this. It's supposed to be a 12-person meeting. They send it out. The school board gets involved, all of this kind of stuff. And they blast it out. Well, they have to move it to I think it was the court, some other public building, where like 1,000 people show up. And they're yelling at her, and they're putting microphones in her face, asking her questions that she has no time to answer. And then they publish all these stories. And you go online, and there's all these things where someone's like, yeah, I went to school with her when she was a kid. She was always a bully. Not true. Someone else is like, yeah, my neighbor nannies her kids, which is not true. I know that's not true. The kids go to our school, and she's a stay-at-home mom. And she just sits on her phone all day trying to look for books to, and just, accusations that I know that she cheated on her husband and all of this stuff, all absolute baloney. And this is over a very reasonable request in a pretty conservative area where we're at. It's a very red area. And she was just brought through the absolute ringer. And this is really small time. So I can't imagine that amplified by 100 on a national scale, with all of the organizations that would rally together to oppose these types of people that just stand up for something extremely reasonable and sensible.
Yeah, God bless her. A few thoughts on this. I'm actually a member of a group. I haven't done much for them, but except just talk with them. Moms for Liberty. Well, so because there are these women who are really rising up, and I think you would know better than I. C.S. Lewis would talk about men and women and how we balance one another off, and women can be fierce like a tiger in the protection of their kids. And that's a wonderful thing to behold.
That's what Lewis gives his explanation of why man's head of the household in Mere Christianity. He basically says, if your dog bites the neighbor's kid, who do you want to deal with?
Exactly.
And he says, because the mother she's fierce for her children, as
and
she should be.
We'll often be the diplomats, whatever. Maybe we don't lack, but we do balance one another off. But that's no excuse for men not getting into this fight. We can't leave this to the wives and to the mothers of the children. We need to be in there. And now there are all these people that showed up against her. I do think we need to know that, like during the days of Elijah, there were, 7,000, was that right? Who had not bowed their knee to Baal. Among us, there are many people who are cheering us on.
Mm-hmm.
Who have not yet gained their courage to speak and to act. So now in some ways it's annoying, because if I do anything, if I speak publicly, and I've had the opportunity to speak at the State House, that sort of thing, but if I speak publicly, people will come and whisper their support in my ears. It's like, oh, hey, we really want it. Thanks a lot for doing that. It's like, you could just say that out loud.
Yeah.
You could just say, you're my friend and I'm cheering you on. I'm not enough of the whispers. But now we do have to, that's also together in the church, is we need to help one another encourage and gain courage. And courage is a muscle. And again, you don't go to the gym for a year, 2 years more. You're not going to do much at the gym, but you can start. So you can look at all the people who are really fit and you can think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be like them. What's the point? And maybe you won't be like them. But if you can lift 5 pounds, there's no reason that after a while you can't lift 10 or 15. It takes time, but you're there. It's like a friend who says to me, like, well, when you go to the gym, no matter what you're doing, you're lapping the couch potatoes. Well, the same thing with courage is you begin with small steps. And I do think the pro-life movement is a small step. If a congregation has not really been active, well, maybe the first thing we ought to do is to help a pro-life pregnancy center, help women out in distress. And that's usually about a little money, perhaps sometimes people opening their homes for a little while. It can be diapers, taking care of people, but it's like the softer side of helping. It's not like you're not in the battle or the bloody battle, but you're doing something good that needs to be done. Well, that's a little step. And we all need to make little steps. And like, for instance, I'll write an editorial for our local paper, and people will, again, I'll get whispers, hey, thanks a lot for that. Oh boy, I'm glad somebody said something. And I was like, you could write one. And it doesn't need to be brilliant. If you look at the letters to the editors, they're not all written by PhDs in any sense. I mean, the quality varies so much. So you could say something too. And it need not be brilliant. Just make your point. But they don't. So sometimes now I suppose that's the kind of thing you could think of when we used to have spiritual gifts inventories, and kind of silly. But what can you do? How could you use your voice? There are a lot of ways to do it and a lot of opportunities. And the other thing is to be around people who are courageous, to actually just hang around with people. It's like, that's true in life. If you're a young person, who should you be hanging around with? You want to hang around with people who want to be successful. If you want to be a good football player, you hang around with people who are doing the diet, lifting the weights, are excited about it. If you want to get better musically, you hang around the people who are practicing. And so also in the church, it's good to be around those who are actually leading the way. Maybe you can help them in a little way. Maybe you can be present with them as they do something, but you'll catch it too. But it takes little steps of courage. We don't all have to be the great warrior to begin with, but who knows how the Lord would use you.
And it is amazing how, sometimes I'll hang around people who do have that courage, and I walk away and I'm immediately 30% more courageous.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel bold and whatnot. So I think in our church, we have a handful of individuals that are humbly very courageous and humbly just very strong in what they believe, and almost in just a matter-of-fact way. They're not like loud about it or yelling about it. They're immovable. And I always feel so refreshed when I'm around those individuals, and then I find that I'm a little bit more immovable. And the other thing you find is, like, as you kind of dabble in that, as you kind of grow in your courage, is it gives you such a sense of peace when you do that, because you realize it's just way simpler just to speak what you know to be true, versus trying to like think about like, well, how do I say this in like the properly PC way and like give and take? Like, it's like, no, just speak plainly, and you find that that's so much easier than rewriting the wheel.